It's really hot and humid today, but I'm at the park and wanted to read over some more chapters of Product 37 to try to get familiar with reading it before I go to the end of this week and do um, a, uh, a recording for Audible. Chapter 2 of Product 37, Suburban Sprawl. Parker and Tracy were a middle-aged couple living at the bottom of Sutton's Crossing, the Fowler and Wooten subdivision that ruined Sutton's Creek. Parker Jennings and his wife were upper middle class, and Parker was more of a scumbag than a douchebag. Like the old school, Parker's wife didn't do any work, and that's how Parker wanted it. He was an average-looking guy with one lip always curled up and snarled, and was fiercely jealous with a quick temper. He never necessarily beat his wife, but he certainly loved to make her flinch. They had been married for 6 years, lived at Sutton's Crossing for 3, and were hated by most of their neighbors. They all had assumed Parker abused Tracy, and Tracy was just a meek, dumb bitch. Parker never controlled his tongue to Tracy around anyone, and it almost seemed he loved people to watch and listen to him badmouth his wife. A week went by before Parker noticed the impression in his beloved Dodge. He ran his fingers over the blue tint dent and got real red real quick and started yelling into the valley air. "Tracy, you bitch! Get your ugly ass out here right the fuck now!" Tracy was in the middle living room watching Dr. Phil. She knew the tone and was worried, but waited a moment to watch Dr. Phil scold a 15-year-old for rubbing mayonnaise in her eyebrows. Tracy walked out to the front door in a robe and looked at him dumb. "What, hon?" "Bitch, when the fuck did you do this?" Parker yelled, pointing at the dent in the Challenger. "There they go again," their neighbor Bill said, hearing the commotion outside. His wife moved over to one of the front windows in her robe and gripped the right side of the curtain with her left fist and clasped her chest with her left hand to watch the fun. "I'm tired of listening to them carry on and fight all the time. I wish they'd move back to their trailer court from which they came," said Bill, disgusted. "We can bring it up at the homeowners meeting," said his wife Joan. "They never attend. They won't know it was us." "No," said Bill. "They are our neighbors and live there. Friends or enemies, I'd rather suck it up and deal and pretend he is my friend. Do you want that filthy, disrespectful mouth to blast off in our direction? It's clear how he treats his wife. He has no shame. I'm just going to suck it up and deal, unless I pick a perfect time to wield my pent-up passive aggression." All Joan did was look at him blankly. Bill grinned. "When did you drive my car, cunt?" Parker screamed at Tracy outside. "I've never driven it," Tracy yelled back. "You lying bitch," screamed Parker again. "Get the fuck back in the house." She walked inside, stammering, and started to cry. As soon as Tracy crossed the threshold, Parker gave her a shove. "My God," Joan exclaims. "He pushed her." "Fucking douchebag," Bill noticed. "As soon as the market gets to where we can profit enough to put a down payment on a 2-bedroom place, we're moving." Joan smiled at him quickly, waited a bit, and then looked back at her perch. Things soon escalated with Parker and Tracy. Parker was screaming like a beet red blood pressure dad. Tracy was crying. They both began to shriek. The corners of the sides of Parker's mouth were wet and foamy. He grabbed his wife and started shaking her, unaware they were by the window while their neighbors watched. Joan, of course, was still looking out the window. "He's shaking her now," she whined as she shook her own torso and arm, keeping her eyes on the neighbor's house, hands still on the sides of the curtains. "I don't even want to think about it," Bill said while shaking his head. Tracy disassociated herself away from the fury of her spouse, head bowed down, mind blank. "You drove my car. Just admit it, Tracy," said Parker. "I swear I didn't, honey. I have no earthly idea what happened. I never drove your car." She knew he expected her to fess up. It might even calm him down, but she lifted her face up as her level head prevailed. "I promise I would never drive your car, Parker." He escalated in and out through varying shades of red. "Woman, there is a dent over the right front wheel well from a vehicle with baby blue paint. Quit fucking around." "Maybe someone drove in our driveway by mistake and dented it then, Parker. I swear I didn't do it," Tracy screamed, shaking. At this point, Parker drew back away from his wife and put his hands on his hips. He had pushed his woman hard and she didn't break. He thought for a brief moment she might be telling the truth. "I swear, hon, I didn't drive your car. Somebody had to come hit it in the driveway with another car, as crazy as that might sound. I told you we should have gotten a ring cam." "Hell no," Parker protested. "Maybe one day we'll get a dedicated wiring camera system, but none of that Bluetooth wiring bullshit. That wet mess is way too easy to hack." They looked out of their windows at the neighbors snooping. Joan, of course, was still watching. "I'll give you a chance. Bill's got a camera system with a couple of them that eye my Challenger. I'll go and ask him. Joan, still peering, saw Parker walk out of his front door and began walking to their property with a purpose. He's coming over here now, Bill. What the fuck? Bill said as he shoved his laptop away from him real fast. He got up from his desk and paced back and forth a few times, murmuring and gesturing. He collected himself as Joan announced Parker was almost there. He braced himself, blew off his anger, and waited for a knock on the door or bell. Parker walked up to Bill's door, still red in the face. He knocked. Bill was calm in the face by the time he opened the door. They faced each other. Tracy was outside the house in a now unkempt bathrobe, still sobbing. Bill wished his neighbor's house would just burn on down to the ground like DJ's once did. Jeremy looked back at his wife angrily. She was about to go back in the house and close the door when Parker yelled at her. "When did you say someone might have hit my Challenger?" he wailed. In public, he always referred to his Dodge as the Challenger, so everyone knew how cool he was, as well as what tax bracket he was in. "I really don't know, hun. All I know is it wasn't me," Tracy figured, still sobbing. "Can you look back on the camera system pointed at the Challenger about a week or so?" Parker asked Bill. "Sure I can, Parker," answered Bill. "I'll look at all that footage tonight. Come back tomorrow, neighbor, and I'll let you know what I found." "Thanks, neighbor," nodded Parker. "You're the best friend a neighbor could have. Talk to you then." "Sure thing, dude," said Bill and smirked. "See you tomorrow, neighbor." Parker went back to his house as Bill closed his front door. By then, Joan was well away from the front window and met Bill in the den with a scowl on her face and her hands by her side. "I'll pull all the tapes and look for you, dear," Joan said, a little too enthused. "No, that kind of stuff isn't good for people, dear, especially a woman. You might get to like it and do it all the time and drool at your phone like a fool all day long, wasting your life away, like you were all day on with your face in the phone on mug tone. I'm not even going to look. That asshole can go fuck himself, always talking about some ring cam conspiracy theories." She smiled at him approvingly. The love was there. The next day, after getting home from work at his well-paid job at the rocket propellant plant, Parker went straight upstairs to take a shower because chemicals. After he was done, he got his evening comfort clothes on and walked over to Bill's. This time, he rang the bell. Bill was in the sunroom, smoking a joint. He glanced up when he heard the doorbell. His wife was in the shower, so he had to get up and answer. He tucked the joint in the sides of the glass ashtray with his cherry nudged in it so it would go out quickly. He got up and opened the door. "Howdy, neighbor," Parker sweatered in the night heat. "Did you see anything out of the ordinary in that footage?" My wife seems to think a ghost car came and hit the Challenger." "Nope, neighbor," Bill spouted. "I didn't watch anything out of the ordinary, going on what you said." Parker grew pale for a second, then flushed red. "Thanks, man," he said and walked away. He headed directly back to his home to confront his wife. He swung the house door open and started screaming as it was being opened. He walked into the den. Tracy heard his screams. She sat on the couch with her arms crossed and said nothing. Small edit here. He was talking to a doctor. She sat on the couch with her arms crossed and said nothing, watching TV. Dr. Phil was on. He was on the TV talking to an 8-year-old girl, trying to convince her she wasn't disfigured from the house fire and was still very pretty. Parker could see Tracy at this point where she wasn't having it. "I'm not going to listen to this mess, Parker," Tracy pouted. "You already were rough with me last week. Don't you dare put your hands on me today." Parker paused. He stretched out his hands. "All right, hon, enough." Tracy sat on the couch with her body towards the TV and glared at him with a sideways head, arms still crossed. "We need to get a camera system," she said. Tracy relaxed a little. "I've got some money from when Mom all died. I'll gladly use that to buy the system and run it myself, just to make sure you and I are both safe." Parker could see that his wife was upset that he had pushed things too far. He let her have her way. "Sure, Tracy, we don't need a big green egg anyway. As long as you go through the footage and not me, I'll be fine with it. Also, it has to be a hardwired system that's not one bit connected to any Bluetooth, Wi-Fi, or internet." Tracy started smiling. "Okay, I'll call about a decent system tomorrow morning." Parker noticed a bit of confidence in his wife, both in how she had stood up to him some, as well as her hopeful dedication to house security. He vowed that things would soon change and she'd be more under his control. Tracy called around the next morning to purchase a mid-price security camera system with 2 monitors and 4 cams. The polishing and editing software was extra. Even though she knew she was going to like it, especially the editing part, she didn't purchase it yet. The installer was extremely nice and even went beyond the 15-minute time allotted to teach her how to use the new equipment. The self-teaching CD was sitting in an opaque sleeve along with the install paperwork by the trash can, ready to be pitched as soon as the installer left. After the tutorial, she scrawled the installer a check and shook hands and said goodbye to him in the sewing room where they had set up the monitoring equipment. She had bought a $50 TV from the pawn shop and set it up on the right side of the monitoring system so she could watch Satellite. Dr. Phil was on and was telling an old woman that she looked funny unless she put her false teeth in when she moved. There it is, the installer said, spreading his arms out at the system. This tech should be the answer to all of your life's problems. But if you have any questions, feel free to catch me on Mugtome or Instant Brand. He handed her a card with a square pixelation on one side, which was useless to a Gen Xer of her ilk. Thank you, sir, Tracy said to him as he walked out with him in the sewing room. I'll make sure to call you if I don't understand something, she declared. Sure, the technician worried. He left and she locked both locks. She walked back to the sewing system to look at her new tech toy. It was a 4-camera system set up on 2 monitors, just like all in the movies. All of the wiring, both electrical and informational, was hardwired about the house to the new laptop. There was no internet connection to the system unless she plugged in a rear cable. She sat down in a rolling chair and played around with it as she jostled back and forth on the hardwood floor. She set mouse speed first, then some visual settings to help her ease her eyes. The new system met all of her husband's expectations. Tracy was so proud. She checked the zoom and filter. She zoomed in and watched a squirrel nibble a nut for a minute, then shifted her head and eyes away to the right to watch Dr. Phil, who was yelling at a teen girl for cramming fried chicken legs in the burlap boxer shorts her parents bought her at Target in February for Black History Month. That's chapter 2. Thank you.